What about the, we're talking about all the protests and the strike on Friday. What about the university professor who sent an email to his students who said that if they went to the strike, they would get full marks, apparently, if they went along to... they skipped his tutor there. Hope you're all well. Yes, you could get full marks, 5% of the project mark, if you attend the climate strike today in Melbourne. All you need to do is email a group selfie while you're in the crowd. Of course, they did this, Sarah. I wish it would have been this easy when I was at uni.
Yeah, me too. It would have been good to have full marks to go along to something. But I think with that particular unit as well, there was something to do with social change and impact, and was some kind of premise for that. To have it, full marks and almost like a bargaining chip and prove you've gone with a selfie. It was unconventional, I suppose, to say the least. But again, it's up to the university now and the professor and the students as to how relevant it was to that unit, so to speak. But yeah, I found it at least had a lot of character. It sounds like quite a professor.
Well, it was brilliant work, Stephen, wasn't it? Because it proved what we all have been saying for a long while about the poor academic standards, the groupthink and the green left activism that's just dominating our university campuses.
Oh, no, look, I mean, my 10-year-old daughter got marks for giving a report on what she did in the holidays. That sounds about comparable.
Yeah, but you know what makes me angry about this, Chris, is that we, the taxpayer, fund about 50% of what goes on in universities. The students pay about 50%. The overseas students, I think, pay closer to their costs. And frankly, I don't want to see my tax dollars wasted on a course that is so bogus that turning up at a rally and sending a selfie qualifies as some sort of an academic exercise. I think this guy should be sacked.
Yeah, I'll give you the strong tip. He won't.
With this.
He won't. He won't be sacked unless he supports Professor Peter Ridd. Then he might be sacked. It's just it's beyond words. As is this reaction. I noticed a piece in the 9 media newspapers the other day. In fact, I've written about this for the Australian tomorrow as part of my look at some of the climate media. This is young couples who say that they're deciding not to have children because they're so worried about the planet. They feel that they'd love to have kids, but how can they do that when that child's not going to have the things they should have, like breathable air and drinkable water? Like, in a couple of decades, the planet is going to be uninhabitable. It is this bad. It is this nutty. Stephen, they're talking about not having children because it's so dire. Methinks maybe they like the regular overseas holidays and the gas-guzzling car instead.
Look, I'm sure that they've put a lot of thought into that, and people have all sorts of reasons why they don't have children. I think that's going to a little bit of an extreme end myself. I don't quite think some of those predictions that you referred to are strictly accurate, even on the worst case scenarios put forward by some of the climate change extremists. So I'm not sure that response has any great relevance to the scientific facts, even those championed by the climate change extremists.
Well, that's why I was saying earlier that it's the green left scientists and the like and politicians who have got to try and get the debate back to a normal, rational exchange. Sarah, no wonder kids are scared. No wonder they're frightened when adults are saying day in and day out that the planet will be destroyed in 10 years or that it's so bleak they won't be having kids.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true in general, that kids are quite scared and really hyper-aware. It's not always the adults. I think it's just all around them all the time in, what they're watching and seeing, consuming. I've chatted to a bunch of kids in an article that I did where it's like 10 is kind of the new 15, and just how hyper-aware you are at 8, 9, 10 about climate issues, about, I don't know, like sexual assault and these terrible things. I mean, this is a reason I'm scared to have a kid. If that child's 8, 9, 10, it's dealing with issues I wouldn't have dealt with until my mid to late teens. It's just a pretty scary world. We don't even have to talk about it just being climate change. It's a lot of things that go on to make it scary.
Sarah, it's a pretty good world too, just quietly. It's a pretty good world. There are many, many wonderful things. Nature is beautiful. Humanity is doing great things. I don't think we ought to forget that. And people have never had it so good in terms of their life expectancy and their nutrition and the lack of poverty around the world. People being lifted out of poverty all the time. So, we ought to tell the good story around here. Doom and gloom. It is bizarre that we're actually living at the peak of humanity at this stage. We've never had it this good. We keep improving. We hope we do. yet we've got this catastrophism around us the whole time.
But the interesting thing, Chris, is that it's precisely the people who have the best life, who have the most money and the most comfort and the most opportunities, who are the most pessimistic. And if you go to the third world, where people are still struggling, they're full of optimism and they're having children and they believe in a future and they have a sense of what they want and where they want to go. So,
yeah, good point.
Maybe a first world problem, although one point I would make is it's very ironic, isn't it? We've heard a lot about an extinction rebellion, but the people who are really going to become extinct are these people who don't have any children, you know?
But that's my punchline. That's where they're doing us a favour. That's where the science of natural selection kicks in, and we'll have a much smarter generation just in a couple of decades if these people decide not to breed.